Hey guys, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Glad you guys could make it today. Another Tuesday, and I'm on the Pacific Coast side of things. Where are you guys? Wherever you are in the world, glad you guys could make it. Today we're going to talk about stick to it, right? What does that really mean? And yeah, it's another one of those mindset topics, but every now and then I like to drop those because everybody, no matter what industry or whatever you do in life, whatever career you have, we all need that kind of you can call it motivation, you can call it mental food to get you going, right? Because let's face it, life isn't always the easiest thing, and to be honest, it shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be easy. Sometimes we ask for easy in life, quote unquote, but what we really should be asking for is, hey, can I get stronger so I can handle this situation that I'm facing right now? Because most of us are going to face situations that we didn't expect. There's always going to be a wrench that's thrown into the game. But guess what? That's all part of the game. It wouldn't be a game if it wasn't for the obstacles. It wasn't for the wrenches thrown into the mix. It wasn't for the so-called haters. It wasn't for the unforeseen surprises, setbacks, all that thing. All that stuff is par for the course. That's actually part of, that's part of this whole thing right here. And once we know how to navigate it properly and not let it destroy us, then hey, we're actually winning, right? It's not necessarily about the goal; it's about winning or conquering most of the obstacles, whether they're big or small, to keep us going further along the road to the goal. And even the goal itself is not necessarily the destination, right? Because after you conquer that first goal, then you want, you're gonna probably want to conquer the next one, the next one, the next one, and this is throughout the rest of your life. The minute you feel that you've conquered it all, you're actually lost, right? So I feel that you should actually be looking for obstacles. You should be looking for new goals, new frontiers to if you want to use the word conquer, um, and new parts of yourself you want to explore because it's all about potential, right? All of us have potential. Look at each and everybody in the world as a spark of potential, right? Some people achieve certain levels of potential, right? They manifest certain things more than others, right? So we're going to understand why that is. That's pretty much what this live is about. We're going to understand why some people achieve their goals, quote unquote, and some people don't. And it comes down to simple things. It comes down to things that there's no price tag on them, right? Number one, discipline. You can talk about motivation, but motivation is like feelings, right? You may feel motivated one day, and then you wake up the next day and you don't feel motivated, right? So you really can't depend on motivation to get you going every day. Yes, it's good to have, makes you feel, like you want to go conquer the world and all that. But after that feeling subsides, because that's what feelings are, they ebb and they flow. After they subside, then what are you left with? If you depend completely on feelings, you're going to be like a boat, right? A rickety boat in the ocean out there, getting tossed to and fro like nothing, right? And then a big wave comes, and it just you're gone, right? Um, so what's more effective than just motivation, discipline? That's what's more effective, right? Whether you like it or not, whether you feel like you want to do it or not, you got to stay disciplined, right? That's the only thing that's going to get you towards the goal, right? So what does that mean? That means that when you know you got to work out, right? Or you got to study, or you got to put in those hours just to get that project done for whatever, for your school, for your business or whatever, that you do it regardless, right? It's not about feelings at that point, because guess what? If it was about feelings, you'd never get it done. You'd procrastinate. You would find every excuse in the book, and it's all around us, whether it's food, whether it's going out, partying, all that stuff. It's a million different distractions to throw you off course, right? And I'm not saying those things are bad, right? I'm saying they can become your enemy if you have a goal in mind. Most people don't, the people that do not have goals, right? The partying, the food, the whatever, all those things, even social media, even what you're looking at right now, can be a distraction. But if you don't have goals, who cares, right? You just like I don't want to say like a useless eater or something like that, but if you're not providing any value in the world, right? Um, then who cares? You don't care about goals. You don't care about feelings and all this stuff I'm talking about. But once even if you have a job, a 9 to 5 job, and you're getting up and you're going to work, that's actually a form of discipline, and you should be proud of that, right? If that's paying the bills, it's feeding your family, and keeping you, keep you're being a productive, citizen, I should say, right? And that's a form of discipline, because every day you don't want to go to work, right? But you get up and do it anyway because you have a certain set of values, core values. And that's why I say, even beyond discipline, right? We talked about motivation, which is, I would say, on a lower level than discipline. But what's discipline under? Values, core values. So if you have a set of core values, then the discipline probably will come automatically, right? And if you have the discipline, the motivation, right, will come from that discipline, right? So you actually have to work from a set of core values first. Then you have the discipline, right, to undergird and support those core values, right? And then underneath that, you have the motivation to kind of give the spark, right? Give life to everything you do, right? Because you don't want to feel like a robot getting up and not really having anything to feel excited about. You want to feel excited about something, and that's where motivation comes in. So I'm not knocking motivation. I'm just saying that can't be the support structure for you going after what you need to go after, especially if it's a very high value target, right? It's a very high value target. It's not about just getting a check, but you actually want to you want to provide some kind of value. You have a higher purpose and you feel that you are here for a specific purpose, right? You have defined that. So you first have to define your core values. What are your core values, guys? Come on in the chat and let me know. Matter of fact, let me see if I can go to the chat here. Perigirl Life Notes, how you doing today? Can't depend on feelings, period. Absolutely, Perigirl Life Notes, you cannot depend on feelings. It's that strategy, preparation, and goals are what keeps you on the train tracks. Yes, and I like that analogy of train tracks, right? Because what would derail a train? What would derail a train? Well, if you throw something on the tracks that doesn't belong there, right? That's going to derail the train, and what could happen after that? It can be catastrophe. Well, if you look at your life, or if you look at a specific goal you have, and you're that train heading toward that goal, what would you not like to be thrown on the tracks? Well, I wouldn't want a big boulder to be thrown on the track and to crash into. I wouldn't want a person to stand on the track, because that's going to derail or cause havoc as well. Well, but we do it all the time to ourselves. We self-sabotage our goals, right? We self-sabotage our own lives. And all your life is a series of actions and habits, right? That's all life is, right? If you break life down into seconds, minutes, hours, days, years, decades, all that stuff, it's just a series of actions that you take every day. And those actions stem from thoughts, right, that you cultivate every day. So if your thought life is chaotic, guess what? Your life is going to be chaotic. No, and what's one of the worst things to observe, even within yourself, right? I'm not going to talk about anybody else, but let's talk about ourselves. If you observe within yourself, you may have a semblance of order on the outside, right? But if your inside is chaotic, eventually, right, that will spill into your outward environment, the environment you create for yourself. So, this may sound kind of militaristic, but in a sense, you are at war every day with yourself. So what kind of weapons do you have in your arsenal so you can win that war? And what does winning that war means? It means the accomplishment of your goals. It doesn't necessarily mean happiness, right? A lot of people in life strive for happiness. And what does that mean? You can be happy sitting by a lake or a river, just smoking a cigar all day, not really providing any value to the world. A lot of people say they're happy and they're watching TV all day, watching cartoons all day. On the darker side, a lot of people are happy actually harming other people, right? I mean, that's happiness for them. Um, so it goes back to core values, right? What kind of core values do you have? Because we think that we are our thoughts and our minds, but if you really examine your thoughts or your thoughts in your head, you will find a lot of them don't really coincide with who you really are. You're like, man, where does that thought come from? Huh? Why am I thinking this negative thought? Why am I feeling depressed? Or why am I thinking, that I want to, do something that's self-destructive, either to me or other people? Why am I looking at life in such a negative light? Do you really think that's who you are? Well, and unfortunately, if you don't catch yourself, if you don't catch your mental environment, um, it will take over, right? And you will find that your habitual thought pattern will pretty much turn you into something that, or someone that you didn't think you would, right? So that's the we take for granted this right here, and how that can affect uh how we perceive life and what we achieve in life, how we perceive others, right? And people say, well, your outer environment is a reflection of your inner environment. I totally agree with that. Now, to a point, right? To a point, I agree with that, because I'm not going to blame. There's this thing called, oh, don't be a victim, don't be a victim. I truly believe you can be a victim of certain circumstances, but how you perceive and how you handle those circumstances will determine your true victimhood, right? Some people may react to a certain situation in a more positive light and overcome those obstacles, where those same set of circumstances may destroy another person, right? So at the end of the day, it comes down to, regardless of what happens to you out there, you have to know how to handle that, and you have to have the proper tools to do that, right? So if you don't know that and you're not educated about it, and you're kind of like a leaf blowing in the wind, right? And that's the importance of having uh, qualified individuals in your life, right, to help you stick to it, stick to the goals. Comes down to environment. What's your social environment? And I don't just mean people hanging around you, necessarily flesh and blood people. What are you consuming every day? What are you looking at on the internet today? Are you on social media just scrolling through garbage all day, ingesting that, and then forming a belief system around that? I mean, everybody's on their phones all the time. So this phone here, okay, can be one of the most dangerous uh, threats to your own mental stability. The suicide rate has gone up just because of this in young people, right? And that's because they have not, they're not policing their mental space, right? So you got to be careful. If you're not strong enough to handle what the crap that's coming out of here, right? Because all this is a reflection of reality, what's actually out there in the world. But it's more accessible now, right? It's more accessible. If you're not equipped to handle that, guess what? It's going to destroy you. There's no middle ground here. There's no middle ground. And so you have to, it all goes back to your core values. And these things have to be taught. They have to be learned, right? You're not the avatar born into the world automatically having core values, right? You're molded by your environment. And if you don't have I don't want to say the word mentor, because that's kind of thrown around a lot, but if you don't have people in your life that actually want to, that actually care about your progress and all of that, then guess what? You're going to fall victim to everything else, right? There's no vacuums in the universe, right? If you don't fill this thing up with the right stuff, it's going to be filled, okay, by all the outside stuff. There's no blank space in here, right? There's no blank space in there. It's going to be filled up with something. So you got to make sure you fill it up with the right things. Perry Life Notes gives us a list here. Core values equals integrity, commitment, creativity, perseverance, okay, tenacity. Yeah, that's right. Let's talk about what Perry Life Notes says. Integrity. What does that mean for you, right? Uh, what do you stand for, right? What won't you compromise, right, in your life, right? Can you be knocked off of your principles easily? Where are your weak points? And this is a lot of, let's be real here. We have to learn to identify where we are weak at, right? Some people have, it's alcohol for some people. Some people it's sex, right? It's just being promiscuous, things like that, and that goes for male and female. by the way. Um, some people it's it's drugs. Some people it can be work. It can be something that seems innocuous, meaning that it doesn't seem harmless, but it actually is. Right? Um, all these things can undermine your integrity. Right? All these things can undermine your integrity, and at the end of the day, whatever you build in this life, in this physical universe, uh, the core of it has to be, has to have integrity. If you build a structure, even a building, a physical structure, and it's built, say you're welding something. Let's take a welding analogy, right? You're welding something, and you don't test for the integrity of the weld. Well, eventually that weld is going to fail, and the whole building can come crumbling down. Uh, so it's the same with your life, right? It's the same with your goals, right? If you don't have integrity, if your goals are not built on a solid foundation of discipline, not just motivation, discipline and core values, right? Um, core values being the number one thing. Now, how would I define a core value? A core value would be you can define your own core values, by the way. Hey, Chantel, um, how you doing? Glad you can make it today. I'm giving sort of a mindset talk, in the middle of the year here, kind of do a reset to get everybody going and get everybody's minds on track and focused again. I think we need that. I created these lives to be able to talk about, not just tools to build things, right, or repair things, but actually mental tools as well. So glad you can make it here, Chantel. So um, so you have to have that integrity, guys. And this, and this has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with who you believe in, what God you believe in, what deity you believe in. These are universal principles uh, that support your life, whether you know it or not. Okay, so whatever you do, you have to have some integrity in there, right? You have to have some integrity, whether how you put your clothes on, how you dress, all that stuff. Think about integrity. Am I doing it right? Am I, like they say, whatever you do, how you do something is how you do everything, right? And I'm not saying I'm Mr. Perfect myself. I'm not. Trust me, I'm working on everything I'm talking about. I'm really talking to myself too, because but it's good to remind each other of these principles. So because all of us want success, all of it in some form of fashion. It doesn't have to be money. It could be, you want your family to, you know, to stick together, right? It could be anything. You want to achieve that financial goal. You want to build that business. You want to maintain that relationship. Um, you know, all of it has to do with integrity, right? Another thing about integrity is honesty, right? Honesty is another. You got to be honest with yourself first and foremost, right? And you will find that honesty will take the burden off of you about a lot of things, right? Because you're looking at yourself in a clear, real way, identifying your weak points, and to be able to, identifying your strong points as well, and to be able to convey that to someone else is really a strength, right? Really a strength without feeling, ashamed or intimidated about whatever it is, right? Without feeling judged and all that other stuff, um, that will make you actually compromise your own integrity, right? You got to be first honest, right, with yourself and with others. Now, I'm not saying you go out there and you tell somebody how you feel about them and it's negative. I'm not saying that. There's a way to do things, right? There's a way to approach people and talk to people and all of that. But if it's based in integrity and you have good intentions, and your intentions are not to harm that person, but actually to help that person, then you're acting in integrity, and that's number one core value. So have that, okay? Very Life also mentioned commitment. What does that mean? Commitment. Well, it's pretty simple, guys. If you decide to do something, you got to, like I said, like the title says, you got to stick to it. You got to stick to it no matter what. If you really want to do that, you got to stick to it, right? Now, that does not mean you can't pivot. You can't pivot and maybe find another angle if this particular course of action is not working out the way you want it to work, or you're smart enough to realize, hey, maybe I need to shift. But you have to have an overarching goal that you're committed to, right? Then your tactics, right? There's a difference between tactics and strategy. Your tactics can change, but the overall strategy is to get to that goal, right? So let's just say you want to you want to make $50,000 in 6 months or a year, right? You may start along a course of action and realize, hey, this way is not working, but let me try this way. And if this way starts working, and that other way may just, you know, work much better than the last way. Your tactics have changed, but your course of your ultimate goal, right? It has not, right? So that's what I mean. You got to be committed to the ultimate goal, right? Committed to the ultimate goal, but don't be so stringent and, you know, uh, inflexible as where you cannot change your tactics to reach the goal, because sometimes that's what it requires. You know, you may not realize that 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 first thing that you feel so married to is not working out, right? But you're so married to it because you have an emotional connection to it, but it's actually destroying your progress. It's destroying any other chances of progress and achieving the goal. One of the core values that you should also cultivate is humility, and that means being humble enough to sit back and say, "Oh, let's examine this here. Is this working out for me? I've been doing this so long, for months now, for years now, and is it really benefiting me when there may be other options, right?" So you got to be humble enough. Take your ego out of it, right? Take your ego out of it. Put it to the side. Say, hey, ego, I'm going to talk. I'll deal with you later. But for now, I'm going to look at this situation objectively. Take my ego out of it, and you can see clearer. It's like putting on some glasses, right? It's like putting on a fresh pair of contact lens glasses, and you can see, okay, why that thing is really not working out for you, and maybe you should try this other path that someone was telling you about before, but you didn't want to listen because you were so married to this first thing, right? But and you didn't want to listen, so it kept you stuck. But when you take your ego out of it and just say, okay, I'm going to listen, I'm going to see, and maybe you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that other path, right? You want to stick to this other one. But the fact that you took your ego out of it, you can see more clearly now. Maybe that first path, maybe you just need to tweak it a little bit instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater or throwing it out altogether. Maybe you just need to tweak it a little bit, and then it'll work instead of taking another route, right? But in a sense, that is taking another route if you tweak it. But the point is, if you cultivate that core value of humility, right, then you're able to see clearer. And all that means is taking your ego out of it. Guess what? That's not weakness. That's actually power, right? That's actually power, because down the line, okay, or I should say, throughout the course of history, many great people, men and women, have fallen. Civilizations have fallen because of lack of humility, right? Businesses have been destroyed because of lack of humility, wanting to stick to something, not wanting to listen, not wanting to hear a new avenue that they can explore, not reading the writings on the wall. Chantel says, I like to set short-term goals to work towards long-term goals. That's absolutely correct, Chantel, because think about it like this. I'll give an analogy. If you are an athlete, or let's just say you're someone who likes to run, right? Running is not easy all the time, especially if you're out of shape. You may want to run 5 miles that day, right? And but you look up and say, that's far. That's pretty far, right? I don't know if I can make it. But the only reason those thoughts came in your head with more intensity because you looked up and you saw the distance that you had to run. So those thoughts created just pressure, right? You're like, man, I got to run this long, and it just starts this spiral that is created in your thought process about, man, am I going to make it? Instead of looking down and putting one foot in front of the other, or not looking so far. Yeah, you want to go there, but instead focusing your attention on maybe 200 feet ahead of you to get to that mile marker right there. And then after you get to that 200 feet, then you look another 200 feet, and so on and so forth. Next thing you know, you look up and you are there already, right? And you're wondering, man, I got here. I'm not even tired, right? Like I thought I was. Instead of putting all that pressure on your psyche about reaching that 5 mile mile marker, and thinking, oh man, I'm gonna, exhaust myself. I'm gonna get tired. I'm gonna, fall out. I'm gonna pass out, and all that came from your thoughts. It's almost like mind over matter, really, right? It's really mind over matter. Like if you know, take the short-term goals, they're easier to attain. It's less pressure on you mentally to achieve the short-term goals, and then the long-term goals will take care of themselves. So that's absolutely correct how you approach that, Chantel. How you should approach life anyway. You shouldn't put pressure on anything or anybody, really, right? Don't put pressure on yourself. I'm not saying don't have goals and don't work towards them and have some kind of intentional, milestones that you want to reach, and you put your, like they say, put your head down and really go for it with all your strength and stuff like that. No, I think you should do that, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's almost like stretching a rubber band too far. It's gonna snap, right? Right. So if you stretch it like so much, right? Or put it like this: if you're, once again, here's an athletic analogy. If you haven't worked out in a while, you may want to stretch. You may want to stretch your body first before you go on that run, and you may find that, hey man, I can't touch the floor with my hands like I used to. And then you get into a stretching program, right? But you don't automatically try to touch those, because guess what? You're going to pull a muscle, right? You're going to pull a muscle, and then you can't do anything. But if you approach it where, okay, I'm going to stretch a little bit every day, a little bit every so often, and you have a schedule, then finally you can touch the floor again with no problem. But you didn't rush into it right away. You just did the short term, as far as you can that day, So, analogies all over the place to describe what I'm talking about. As above, so below. That's an axiom. If you don't know already, as above, so below. So you can take any concept that's abstract and find a physical, complement to it, right? And that's the beauty of analogies. If you can find a physical representation of of the concept that you're trying to convey, that's a superpower right there, because everybody can understand a physical analogy, right? You don't have to be Einstein to understand that, if they're not having, if they're having problem grasping the concepts that you're putting out. Paragraph Life Notes, I'm going down your list that you wrote here. Creativity. The core of I think life itself is being creative. I created this whole Caliber 8 YouTube channel, so I can teach people how to use tools properly, build things and all that stuff, but it came out of here. It came out of my mind, right? With the existing technology that exists today, I created this. But did you know that everybody's creating all day long, and they don't even know it? When you become conscious of yourself as a creative being, that you're creating, even when you're sitting still not doing anything, you're creating something. It could be that you're creating poverty in your own life because you're not doing anything of value. You're not giving any value to the world, but nonetheless, you're creating something, right? So why not take the reins of that law of creativity, that principle, and actually create something positive, create something that can sustain you, that can add value. And guess what? It'll come back to you in one way or the other. It'll come back to you in one way or the other. So, creativity is we all have it. You may say, oh, that person's so creative, I'm not, and this and that. Yeah, that person may be creative in their own way. They may be an artist, musician, they may be an engineer, they may be this and that. But I guarantee you, if everybody has some kind of creative ability. If you're here on earth in the flesh, you have some kind of creative ability. You may be a great, designer, or you can be all of that, right? You just have to examine what you do best. What are you good at? Okay, everybody's put here for a reason to do something, right? And that's a fact, whether you know it or not. Even the homeless person laying on the street, in the sense of giving up on life, they have something to give to the world. Because I truly believe there is no waste. There's no waste in the universe, right? Nothing is created without some purpose or value. That's the reason it exists in the first place. So even a rock, is of value in some form. We may not understand that, right? But there's value in everything that exists, everything that you look at. Uh, every person you look at, right? So if you start looking at yourself as you have no value, why are you here? Well, for one, that's actually, if you're questioning yourself why you're here, that's actually a good thing. That means you're on the right path, okay? And you will find the answer, right? But what's really sad to me is when people don't know why they're here, right? Because now they see themselves as useless, or they don't really have a reason to be here, and they don't really have anything to lose, and that's the most dangerous person out there. When you don't someone who doesn't have anything to lose because they don't know their purpose. So now they become a destructive element in the universe, right? You're either going to be constructive or destructive, right? There's no in between here. If you're here in the flesh, watching me, listening to me, listening to the sound of my voice right now, you are either a constructive force, right, in this physical universe, or you're not, which means you're destructive, right? So choose which one you want to be. How are you going to create? How are you going to manifest your creativity? Because you're creating regardless. The thing about that is, there are laws, right? And I don't want to sound super metaphysical here, but there are laws that govern this whole thing here, right? And the more useless that you become, the more useless that you think you are, and you actually feed into that, those quote unquote negative thoughts, guess what? You're going to be spit out of the system. You're going to be spit out of the system. How will you be spit out? I mean, it's all kinds of ways, but the ultimate way is that you're not going to be here anymore. Now you can take that how you want to take it, because the universe tends towards productivity and trending up, and but if you as a human being with so-called free will, I say so-called, make choices where that you're going against the grain here, meaning that you're unproductive, you're not doing anything of value or giving out value to the world, then you will reap the consequences. That's just a hard fact of life, and we've all experienced it to some degree or the other. Chantel said, I read a book called The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, and it's a good book. I heard about that book. My brother, he mentioned that book to me a long time ago. I think that Rick Warren is a pastor, if I'm not mistaken. He's a pastor or something like that. But Purpose Driven Life. Just the title alone, though, you can gain a lot from the title alone that she mentioned of this book, The Purpose Driven Life. Is your life driven by purpose? Have you defined it? Have you defined what that purpose is? Because you can define that, right? You can actually define. That's one of the great things about it. You can actually define your purpose, right? And whether it's your real purpose or not, right? You will find out, right? Because some people think, sometimes we think, okay, this is our purpose, when it's really not, right? But you'll know what your purpose is because you'll sit in that purpose, and you'll feel so comfortable in it that you will know that it is your purpose. And the purpose doesn't just necessarily have to be one thing. It could be a multi-pronged, multifaceted, multifaceted dynamic, I should say, under the umbrella of one main purpose, which is service, right? So I don't subscribe to the fact that you just have to be necessarily one thing, right? You may have one thing that you're great at, but it doesn't mean that you're not good at other things. But that one thing may be the main driver of what you do. In other words, you can be, for example, let me see here. You can be a good race car driver, for example, right? You can be good, and you can say, oh, well, that's your purpose, but you may also be a good mechanic at the same time. You may be, so it's a lot of things around that one main purpose, right? And that's usually how it is. Most people are the people that seem to accomplish great things. They're not necessarily, yes, they're good at one thing, right? That we peg them for that one thing, but there's a lot of things around that they're also good at either. In order to make that, that's good. You got this. Yeah, somebody driving by that they may be good at, riding motorcycles. Yeah, so there's a lot of things around that one thing that they may be good at as well. because those other things make that one thing work, right? And really makes that one thing work. So, but it's good to define yourself. I mean, it's good to define a main thing, right? Not that you know, like for instance, I'm on YouTube right now talking to you guys, but I have to know how to convey my ideas in a coherent fashion, right? I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, working on it, but that's not the main thing I do here, right? But it's necessary that I'm able to do that as well, right? So there's just multiple facets of yourself that you're good at and that define your purpose. Is all I'm saying. It's not just one thing. Yes, it's one overarching there's one overarching direction that you may head in, but it's also, it comes with a lot of other skills that you may have built up to help support, like the supporting actors of that main thing, right? You understand? Okay, I hope you guys got that. Chantel says, yes, he's a Saddleback. Okay, that's all right. I've heard of the guy. And once again, guys, you know, it's you know, just kind of piggyback on what Chantel said, you know, about the pastor and all that. You don't have to be religious to learn from going to church and learning from the lessons in there. You know, there are universal lessons that have nothing to do with a religion at all, right? There's universal truths that exist regardless of whether it's cloaked in a religion or not. Your goal is to understand the universal truths, embody them, right? Instead of just embodying in religion, right? Because you know, religions, you know, they can be warped and all kinds of stuff, corrupted and stuff like that. But the whole goal is to take the kernel out of the you know, take the core of the core truth out of things, and you'll be okay, right? It'll take all the complications out of it. You know, sometimes we complicate our lives when we get into certain belief systems, right? Because it's so many you know, other things that complicate the truth, that cloak the truth, and you got to kind of pull it out. And you live by if you live by those core truths, which are not hard, they're not surrounded by a bunch of complicated things, right? If you live by the core truths, then I would say that you're closer to so God than being religious. So it's not about religious. It's about understanding the core truths. All right. So back to that. Perigo Life Notes. Let's go back to her list. I actually had a somewhat of a list, but I jumped on Perigo list here because she listed some good things. Perseverance. And that perseverance kind of, you know, it's more in tune with the title of this live, right? Perseverance. Stick to it. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory, guys. If you don't stick to something, it's not, you know, I don't care what it is, what kind of goals you have, how motivated you are, how much discipline you have. You know, it's not going to happen for you, right? So you first have to understand that whatever you set out for yourself in terms of goals and so-called dreams and stuff like that, you got to understand that it's gonna be a road. If it's worth achieving, it's gonna be a rough road. You're gonna have bumps, you're gonna have failures, you're gonna have people do things to you, steal you, stab you in the back, all the kinds of other stuff, man. It's like, and then it's gonna have you questioning why you're doing it in the first place. But this is what I call the valley. You know, you can call it the valley of death, because in a sense, you gotta die to yourself in this valley. We all have to go through this valley. We're going to be tried, and when things are going to be stripped away from us. But you have to understand, this is necessary. This is necessary. You have to be stripped. You have to be knocked down. You have to be, you know, snuck from the back, all that stuff, right? Because your ego has to be stripped away, right? Because sometimes when if you reach a goal prematurely, if you reach it too fast, or if something's given to you without earning it, if it's given to you so fast, right? Like, let's take, for example, rich kids. Everybody knows the stories of rich kids, right? You know, a lot of times we hear things happen like these celebrities' kids, and like they're not happy. They're killing their parents or they're committing suicide. Why is that? because they don't really know what it means to actually earn what they have. Everything was given to them on a silver platter, and we look at them and say, "Man, they got it so easy. They must be living the life." But we're not looking at what the soul requires. I think what the inner man requires is struggle. That's actually necessary, right? Struggle is necessary to be able to reach that pinnacle or that goal that you're reaching for and stay there, right? Because if you understood what you had to go through to get there, you would value that more, right? You would value that more, and that the only way that's going to happen is through struggle and perseverance and sticking to it, right? Staying the course, going through the valley of death, going through the dark tunnels that are all required, right? All this stuff is required. We complain about life. We can complain about life, but all the time about the things we go through and the hardships and oh, they betrayed me, and they left me, and all this other stuff. All that's necessary. All of that is necessary. And if you could look at that stuff and say, and smile, get to the point where you can smile and say, you know what, that was necessary in order for me to change, in order for me to take that step. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't have taken this step. How many times can we look back in life and say that, right? We needed kind of, I don't want to say hit rock bottom, but at least a level of rock bottom to wake us up and say, okay, we need to make moves in another direction. Because if that didn't happen, then you would still be in that same spot. You would still be in that same spot, right? So it's all about perspective, right? It's all about perspective and persevering. So where the rubber meets the road is can you survive? Can you survive the hard knocks? Because they're coming. They're coming every day. Expect them to come, right? If you expect something to come, not that you're thinking negatively about the situation, but you're looking at the total landscape of how life is. You can't get to the next level until you conquer something. Think about a video game. You gotta conquer that level and all the obstacles and all the little demons that are coming to get you. You got to conquer those first before you achieve. And don't imagine if those demons weren't there in the video game, or the little monsters or whatever, right? That's the whole point of the video game, is to make you feel like, hey, look, I killed I killed that monster. I defeated, that enemy. And you get to that next level, right? That's like a dopamine hit, right? It's like a dopamine hit, and you feel like, man, I accomplished something. Imagine if those things weren't there and you're just going from level to level with no struggle, with no fight. You didn't learn how to fight. It's like you got to learn how to fight. That's just what it is. And if you didn't learn how to fight, like say some of these rich kids, they didn't have to fight for to be that wealthy. They didn't have to go through the hard knocks. They were born into it, right? And we think they have it all, but actually they're some of the most unhappiest people, because true happiness really is in the struggle, right? So if you say struggle equals happiness, then you've already won right there. You've already won. Okay. What else? Tenacity. Yeah, that kind of goes with perseverance there, but it has has more of a tenacity. Has more of a bite. The energy of it is more intense, I think, because that means you're not just persevering, but you're actually, you're the intensity of your perseverance, the intensity of, hey, not letting go, staying the course, fighting the good fight, right? Being faithful. Claudette, how you doing, Claudette? Claudette McCoy's in the house. Claudette says, having faith and trust in God. Yeah. The intensity of your faith. What is that? What is faith? What is the definition of faith, guys? Being able to see that which is that which can't be seen, having that vision. Okay, holding on to that vision, being tenacious with it. Knowing, not just a blind faith. I think when people hear faith, they think, okay, it's a blind faith, right? That's like, oh yeah, my mama said I should believe in God, or the people in church said I should believe in God, or believe in, you know, something, whatever you believe in, whatever it is. I'm just using, that as an example. Um, but there's a difference between believing and knowing, right? There's a difference between believing and knowing. Believing, I think true belief is knowledge, is knowing, right? Meaning that there's no doubt in your mind that this is going to happen for you. There's no doubt in your mind that this is going to happen. Matter of fact, it happened already. It's just that the physical world is catching up to it, right? So all your actions is just catching up to what already happened. That's knowledge, and that's true faith right there. Because then nobody can knock you off of that. You're not allowing the distractions of life. You're not allowing the naysayers, the haters, and the haters could be in your own family. Because you know what? Even people in your own family don't know your potential. They don't know who you really are. Only you know that. And the Most High knows that, however you define that. They know your true potential. But because they love you, right, they want to make sure that you're safe. Oh, don't do that. It's going to be dangerous for you. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you shouldn't spend that money. All right. Not to say it, then, yes, you should listen to wise advice, especially when it comes to money and financial stuff. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you one thing I have learned. I've listened to people. Well, I've out of respect, I'll listen to them and say, okay, they told me not to do that, or I should go that direction. At the end of the day, I found that when I did my own thing, I was right and they were wrong, right? Because I listened to that. I listened to I listened to the inner man, right, who I think is more in touch with faith and with God than and I use that term, I don't want to say loosely, but you have to understand the word God is an English word. Other people have different, other people have different terms for that, for God. Why I feel that it exists within us all, right? It's not just on the outside, right? God exists within us. God, if God is omnipresent, for example, if God is omnipresent, meaning God is everywhere at all times, guess what? Why would he not be in me? Or he or she? Because God created a woman too, right? God created as a female as well. So, yeah. So I listen to people, but to a point, right? Because they're telling me either they care about me to tell me what they to give me the advice they're giving me, or they're hating on me, or they hate me. You know what I'm saying? It's no in between. Either somebody cares about you and they give you advice, or what they're telling you is coming from a place of ego, jealousy, hate, all that stuff. There's no in between, guys. Understand that. Anybody you come into contact with, you got to be able to read them. Why are they telling you this? Do they have an agenda? And I'm talking about your own family. I'm talking about your wife, your girlfriend, anybody, Do they have an agenda? Are they telling me because they feel insecure that I'm going to leave them? Or, it could be somebody in your life, that you're sleeping with. And it's like, I'm telling you guys, it gets that deep. Where are we here? Faith is knowing without seeing the part of your journey. That's right. I mean, it's not. It's about knowing, right? If you can have a vision, Perigo Life Notes mentioned that. If you could have a vision, right, in your head, it's already happened in the mental and spiritual universes, right? It's already there. You just got to stick to that vision. All the details will be worked out. You just take it day by day. And that's when the struggles and the learning and all that stuff happens, right? Because that's necessary too. Because it's not designed for you to get it right away. Because it's almost like getting money. You could know how to get money, but do you know how to keep money? It's the same with the goals, right? If you get to the top of the mountain, do you know how to stay there? Have you earned the right to stay at the top of the mountain? A lot of people get to the top of the mountain and they fall right off. For example, let's think of all the athletes that we know have achieve their goals of, getting into the whether it's football, NBA, whatever it is in life, politics. It could be anything. Celebrity status, and they got there, right? They worked out, but do they have what it takes to stay there? Because it just takes one thing. It took all that work just to get to the top of that mountain, and then it just takes one tiny mistake, getting with the wrong person. A lot of guys, they get with the wrong woman, and they go tumbling down the mountain. So, you have to learn, or a lot of women get with the wrong guy and they go tumbling down wherever they got to. So it works both ways, right? So it's not about getting that thing. It's about being able to keep that thing, and then keep that status, stay on that level, so you can move on to the next level and so forth. And not just that, being able to teach those coming up under you how to stay there too, right? If there's somebody in your life that could teach you how to get there, but they themselves don't know how to stay there. I could tell you, hey, look, man, if you want to get on YouTube, just get a computer, turn this on, turn the camera on, do this, that, and the other. I can tell you how to get on YouTube, but can I tell you how to stay on YouTube? Right? No, that's two totally different skills right there. Requires totally different skills. One requires discipline, consistency, and all that stuff. The other one requires just a couple of things, pushing a few buttons. So it's the same in life. You gotta know how to stay there. Not just stay there, but know how to, pass on to the next level as well. Okay. Chantel Love. What's we saying? Chantel says, God is the masculine and the Holy Spirit is the feminine. Okay. I'm not even gonna argue with that, Chantel. Let's go with that. God is the masculine, the Holy Spirit is the feminine. Yeah, I agree with that. We can look in, even science tells you, right? If you look at an atom, you have a neutron, proton, electron. The electron has a negative charge, proton has a positive charge. Then you got the neutron, which is kind of neutral and stuff, So if you take that in religious, religious terms, God, Holy Spirit, Father, and all that stuff. I think the Holy Spirit is a feminine aspect. Like you said, Holy Spirit is feminine. Yeah, it's there too, right? It's you need both, right? That's why you shouldn't be so hard on yourself when you're having negative thoughts, or what we call negative thoughts, right? Because you need that. You need the struggle. You need the inner struggle to really, you need that inner fight to become stronger, right? So you can attain the next goal, right? And once you understand how you work as a human being, as a spiritual being, you understand the deeper intricacies, mechanics of your spiritual self. You'll start to look at life different. You won't be like as judgmental about yourself. You kind of understand what happened to you in the past, because now you can understand how others work and why they did what they did. And it's all about understanding yourself. At the end of the day, it's all about inner growth. I don't care what you do, whether it's business, whether it's athletics, whether it's whatever you do. It's also all about understanding who you are. Claudette, what's Claudette say? It could be just some constructive criticism. Yeah, absolutely. We should learn how to take that, but we won't see it constructively, Claudette, if we have our ego in it, right? I'll give an example. I was making sales calls today, just making sales as I do, and you're gonna get hung up on by people. Oh, I'm not interested, this, that, and the other. That comes with the territory. But if you have an ego, guess what? You're gonna take all those rejections personally, and you can't mentally handle that if you have your ego in the way, thinking that everybody's going to say yes, everybody's going to listen to the sound of your voice, everybody's going to like the sound of your voice. No, everybody's going to be interested in what you have to offer. That's ridiculous to even expect that. What you should expect is that some people are going to respond favorably to what you have to say, and you should look at it as a numbers game, right? But if you look at it from an emotional, egotistical standpoint, you won't last at all. So if you look at it from a logical standpoint, saying, hey, this is, out of this amount of people that I call, certain people are not going to be interested. I already know that. But what you can get out of the rejection is that an ability to sharpen your skills in terms of communication, right? Some people that you may think rejected you may actually, it's a not yet, or you may have to phrase it differently to get a more positive response from people, right? So it's just a reflection sometimes of what you're doing, right? How can I sharpen my skills? How can I make this better? And then some people are not going to want to hear it anyway, but that's okay. That's okay. Regardless of how you look at it, it's sharpening your skills as a salesperson, right? Or whatever you do as a marketing person, whatever. When you're dealing with people, right? So I had a call today, and the guy was I said, hey, listen, my name is so and so, and he immediately said, hey, look, I don't know who you are. Why And then he proceeded to say, oh, I run a sales team myself, and the way you came off is like, nobody cares, who are you? And so I listened to him. I told him, listen, hey, what you're saying is, hey, I get it. I even said to the guy, I got a pen and pad right here because I'm listening to what you say. You say you run a sales team, so I'm learning myself. And he started asking me all these questions, and I started to explain to him. Guess what? The guy hung up on me. Maybe he didn't like what I had to say, but I saw some holes in his argument. He may have run a sales team for a long time, and I'm not knocking that at all. He had more experience than I have, probably, right? But what he was saying to me was contradictory to my experience, right? If I tell a person, hey, listen, or if I ask a potential client, I say, listen, I'm doing this and this and that. I work for this company, and can I have 30 seconds of your time so I can? Well, that automatically is opening a hole for that other person to say, no, I don't have time. And the way I approach the situation was completely different, right? And it may work. I'm not saying but to open up holes in your so-called sales pitch for someone to come in and say, listen, no, I don't have time right now. You're doing that if you're asking the person, you're saying, can I get 30 seconds of your time? I'm not saying it doesn't work, but that's just not the way I worked it, right? And I was having success. And according to him, if I was doing it the way I was doing it, I'm not having success. But it was contradictory. So he hung up on me. He couldn't, I don't know. So yeah, that goes back to the point where I say, you should listen to people, but don't necessarily listen to them in the sense that you got to do what they say. Take what they say as constructive criticism, yes, but is it in line with your experience? It may be, and it may not be. If it's not, then throw it out. Throw it out. Or you could say, okay, you can try it. The advice they give you, you can try that, and if it works, then it works, right? But why fix it if it's not broken, right? So anyway, yeah. All right. So yeah, guys, we're talking about stick to it. And these are just some of the principles that I've learned over time. Here's a few more, guys. Focus, guys. You got to stay focused. I gave the analogy of a magnifying glass in the sun. Have you ever burned a leaf with a magnifying glass? I've done it in the past. It could just be a piece of glass, right? But on a hot day, you have some dry leaves, and you take that piece of glass and focus it on that leaf, and you see that tiny bright spot. That's the light being passed through that glass from the sun, and the glass is magnifying it, focusing it on that leaf. And the heat from that, it's almost like a laser beam, will cause the leaf to burn and eventually catch fire. That's focus, right? But it only happens when you keep that glass as still as possible. So think about it. If your goal, right? If your goal is that leaf, burning that leaf, right? If your goals are that, think of your goals as that leaf that you want to ignite and you want things to happen for you. Then your mind is that magnifying glass, right? And the creativity, right, coming through that, you have to focus that with action, okay? But if you're all over the place, let's just say I was moving that glass all over the place. My hand wasn't steady, right? It's shaking, right? Guess what? It won't be focused and that leaf won't burn. So in the same way, your mind, you have to be focused on whatever it is that you want to accomplish, right? There are going to be so many distractions. There's going to be people in your life, right? That you want to satisfy. You know, it's going to be all kinds of things. It's going to be bills that you got to pay, all kinds of things, man. This stuff's not going away. But what you can't, the bills are not going. Well, it depends, right? You can cut back on your bills, and guess what? You can cut back on the certain people in your life if they're not serving you as well. So you do have control there. So in order to stay focused, you got to understand, hey, what do I have to get rid of, right? So I can stay still and focus on. Sometimes it's cutting people out of your life, and a lot of us aren't willing to do that, right? We're not willing to cut out people that are not good for our progress because we have an emotional attachment to them, and that's what kills a lot of people's progress. Emotional attachments. If you're strong and you're able to cut emotional attachments, I'm not saying completely, right? You may still have ties to these people, but you're removing them from your life at least to the extent that you can focus on your progress. Because most of the time it's other people, right? It's the emotional attachments to other people that derails the progress. It throws you off the train tracks. Okay. So if you know how to focus, just like that magnifying glass, no matter what, I'm saying no matter what, okay, then, you know, it's going to happen, right? It's when that light burns that leaf up, that's a law of the universe. That's what's going to happen. All you had to do was stay focused. You didn't do anything else. You just held it still. So it's the same thing with your goals. Now, I'm just saying, like, when I say focus, that includes action. That includes action every day towards it. Whether it's a small action, big action, it has to be an everyday action towards what you're doing, because that's how it works, okay? I'm not just saying sit there and meditate on, oh, I'm going to manifest this out of my... No, you got to have actual action. You got to, if it's business, you got to go out there and make the calls. You got to go there and meet people. You got to provide the service. You got to provide the product. You got to do all those things. You got to deliver on the product, okay? That's all about focus. I'm just talking about things that take you away from those core actions. All right, measuring progress. You got to be able to measure, right? Measure once, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once. Always measure your progress. Like if you're trying to lose weight, right? You got to measure. How you gonna know how much you weigh? I mean, like if you're really trying to get granular, right? When you see two boxers getting ready to fight, they both get on the scales and they weigh them out, right? It's the same way. You gotta be granular with how you measure your goals, measure your progress, right? You got to know your numbers in business. You got to know how much things cost, how much you're selling for, your profit margins, all that stuff. If you're in a relationship and stuff, you got to you kind of quote unquote measure the emotional climate of your own relationship. Right? It's just that's not necessarily numbers, but you got to know how to measure that and track that and see if everything's on point. Maybe the other person's not feeling satisfied for some reason. So if you're not, measuring that, it can get out of hand at some point. Things build up. So you got to be able to measure that and say, okay, I sense that they're having issues. Let's talk, let's communicate, see what's going on. Avoid procrastination. Yes, this is the biggest killer. Let me tell you, man, I procrastinated so many times. Sometimes I still do. And it's not a good feeling when you have goals, right? You're not just, just sitting. It's one thing to procrastinate and you don't have goals. You just, you don't really have much going on in terms of that. But to have something going on and procrastinate at the same time it's such a big killer of self-esteem. Because you're sabotaging those goals, right? Why say you have them? Why tell other people you have them and you're sabotaging it the whole time? Procrastination. So that's like me saying I have goals to YouTube and to the world on YouTube, and then going procrastinating and actually not doing anything about it. I mean, that's a sad situation. Okay. All right. I'm gonna wrap this up in a minute, guys. Last one. Stay motivated, guys. Stay motivated. I know I talked about motivation. It's the lowest part, but you do need that spark. You need that spark. You got to find something to motivate you every day, right? Find something to motivate you every day, right? It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a phrase. It could be an affirmation you make. It can be like looking out your window and seeing the mountain range. Whatever works for you. Have something to motivate yourself to keep you on point. Okay. So anyway, guys, hope that did well. Hold on a second. Let me see something. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys got something from this live. Guys, if you want to support the channel, go to calibrate.com. I got some great products over there for you. Okay. Check it out. Great tools for the everyday DIYer, you know, toolkits, measuring tapes, you know, even have a utility bag, which is a great gift item. And you real estate guys, you know, mortgage lenders. Yeah, these are great gifts you can give your clients, by the way. Okay. And, you know, great corporate gifts as well. And if you just want to get something special for somebody special in your life, check out the website, calibrate.com. All right. Stay tuned for more content. Like I said, Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's when I put content out. And I'm looking to expand the content. But, you know, right now, this is what we have. Give me some feedback, right? Give me some feedback on what you guys would like to see. And, hey, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. Okay, Perigirl Life Notes, Chantel Love. Appreciate you, Claudette McCoy. Thanks for stopping by and participating. It's always good when you guys participate and you guys make it worth it. All right. So anyway, guys, have a good night, and I'll see you next week. Peace.